Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about how this latest Nintendo Switch 2 leak has left some fans angry. And I think it's a really good discussion to have here because if these leaks prove to be true, it looks like Nintendo's going in a particular direction that myself personally has been wanting them to do for a very long time. And I think this makes a lot of sense, and I think there's actually a lot of reason to be excited. But some fans look at it in a very different way, and so that's what I want to get into today. But before going forward, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. So before we get into the main leak that we will be discussing today regarding Nintendo Switch 2, I want to talk about this other potential leak here that I think will also be a good talking point for this discussion. Switch 2 developer claims that the hardware is very capable. And so here it reads, a low-key trusted developer from Installbase responded to a user claiming that Switch 2 wouldn't get AAA games and that the system would be weak, and he responded, "It's not. Both Nintendo and third parties see Switch 2 AAA titles as a big potential growth driver. The hardware is very capable." He added, "I'm not at all saying it'll get everything always, but I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised." So essentially what's being said here is that Switch 2 is going to have some pretty decent AAA third-party support, and they're going to perform pretty well. Is it going to be everything? Is it going to be perfect? Is it going to be as good as PlayStation 5? Probably not, but it's going to leave many people pleasantly surprised. And I think if this is true, that's definitely a great thing. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't the first time we've heard someone come out and say that there's likely going to be really strong AAA third-party support on the platform. This isn't even the second, third, fourth, or fifth time. We continue to hear this, and we've been hearing this for many months at this point. Now, for those curious on the original source of this, it's here on Installbase. It's Matt right here with this duck character, and I just don't know who this is personally. Apparently, they are a trusted developer. So for anyone in the comments who knows who this is, let me know. I will likely pin your comments so everyone can see that. I don't know who they are, but they're apparently a trusted developer. But regardless, there have been many different insiders or developers over this last year or so who have been suggesting that there will be some pretty good AAA third-party support on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think that would be a great thing. I think it would be really nice to play games on your Switch 2 and they look and run pretty well, and it's the same kind of games you'd be able to play elsewhere. This would afford Nintendo the opportunity to perhaps capture a larger portion of the market. Recently, analysts have been saying that going into the next generation, one of the three competitors is likely going to fall way behind. And it's not going to be Nintendo. Most analysts are thinking that Nintendo is going to have essentially a stranglehold on the market and be the market leader, and then it's going to be up to Sony or Microsoft to figure out who is going to be in second place, and most assume it's probably going to be Sony, with Microsoft falling way behind and acting more like just basically a third-party developer, as they have seemingly been trending as of late. And so at least at this point, many believe that the Switch 2 is going to be very successful, and people aren't really necessarily concerned about Nintendo being successful, but some people might be concerned about Nintendo losing a little bit of their flair, why they love Nintendo. Some of these people being around even during the times when Nintendo was not so successful, like the Nintendo GameCube, like the Nintendo Wii U. And so that basically brings us to this latest leak that a lot of people have been discussing. And so we actually talked about this a couple days ago already. It's coming from Pioro, checking his replies. There's a lot of people that are talking about this Switch 2 logo. Necro Felipe from Universal Nintendo put together this mock-up from a rumor that a lot of people have been saying might be true. And this is apparently the logo, especially now because Pioro, one of the more trusted leakers, who liked this tweet, actually said here, "Nice logo." Them seemingly saying that there's something to this logo. Now, for those who don't know, Pioro likes to tease things. They wouldn't just outright say, "Hey, this is it." And for those who doubt that Puro still has sources, literally just a few days ago, they teased a new Sonic racing game with Shadow, which was confirmed at the Game Awards. And they've done things like this all throughout the year, even after the drama that followed the June Direct earlier this year. But we do have an update here, because someone asked, what do you mean? And Puro here says, I showed someone this mock-up, and their response was, and looks like there's some text here to be translated, so let's go ahead and do that. Translate section to English. Looks exactly like that. So essentially, Puro is saying that they shared this with their source, this Switch 2 logo, and they said that it looks exactly like that. And so what this tells us, with some pretty strong confidence, if you thought Puro might have been teasing in a different direction, now we know with some more clarity from Puro, this is basically the Nintendo Switch 2 logo, which also basically tells us this is going to be called the Nintendo Switch 2. And this is where fans have been left disappointed or upset or angered, because the overwhelming evidence seems to be suggesting that the Nintendo Switch 2, what we have been calling this console all this time, is indeed going to be called the Nintendo Switch 2. The branding this time around is only going to change by Nintendo essentially adding the number 2, and they're going to be focused on having as seamless as a transition as possible, continuing the Switch success, just evolving and improving upon it. And there are fans out there that are unhappy by this. They want to see a Nintendo that would have done something different, something wacky and weird. You look at what Nintendo has done over the generations. You look at the Nintendo Wii. They called a console Wii. Wii, W-I-I? That was such a weird decision at the time, but they saw such great success, and it was different. The motion controllers, it was a unique experience that had not been seen before. Some fans want something like that. Or you look at the Nintendo DS or the Nintendo 3DS, coming up with a dual-screen console, and then following that up with a console that could do glasses-free 3D. There are many fans who enjoyed these generations and thought that Nintendo during these periods of time was more creative. And so seeing Nintendo essentially doing more of the same, there are fans who are unhappy about this. Now, reminder, still take all these leaks with a grain of salt. Even though it seems like it will probably be called the Switch 2, we don't know for 100% until Nintendo tells us just that. But what I think is more important for Nintendo to accomplish right now is to ensure that they are successful. Because the Switch is arguably their most successful piece of hardware ever. And yes, analysts are predicting that the Switch 2 will become the market leader. And it does look like we are going to have a great deal of quality AAA third-party support on the console, which I think will in large part contribute to Nintendo's success as maybe the market leader. But in order to do this, in order to continue this great success and perhaps build on it by having third-party support better than the prior generation, is by getting the branding just right. It's by not making a terrible mistake and letting people think that your console is just an add-on to your prior one. Yes, the Nintendo Wii was a very successful generation, but it was followed by the Wii U, which is arguably another example of Nintendo being wacky and weird, but they fell flat on their faces for doing so, because the branding was not clear, and they tried something that they weren't sure was going to work. And so what happened? People were confused, and it wasn't that great of a sell. And so the Nintendo Wii U went on to become the worst performing dedicated Nintendo home console of all time. But after the Wii U, Nintendo seemed to have learned a great deal of lessons, and it led to the success of the Nintendo Switch. The way they branded and marketed the console, they did not appeal to children at first. They appealed to people in their 20s and 30s and so on. The majority of their actual audience that would be buying the console in the first couple years. And since then, they've appealed to children as the console becomes more and more mainstream. But Nintendo figured something out with the branding there. It was not just about appealing straight up to kids. And the core innovation of Nintendo Switch is by improving the overall experience of the core gamer. the kind of people that want to play Nintendo games and other games on their consoles. And then Nintendo followed this up by putting out the most consistent high quality lineup we've seen from them, and they've maintained overall consistent quality throughout the entire generation. This formula not only has proved to be very successful, but seemingly repeatable. More so than the Wii situation or the DS situation. Those consoles, yes, they were innovative and they tried something new, but they were also gambles. Nintendo did not know how successful they would be. In some ways, they got a little lucky. They didn't get as lucky with the Wii U, and the successes of those consoles weren't repeatable. And maybe the success for the Switch isn't going to be repeatable either, but Nintendo's at least looking to try here, and I think many would agree it kind of is, because Nintendo fans aren't going to disappear. This isn't a fad. This is simply the ideal way to play for many people. And so they have found ways to improve on that. They should just do that and build on it and see what happens. And to also be clear here, I'm not saying there won't be innovation. I think there will be innovation. There may be some surprise mechanics here. But I also think, looking at the entire Switch generation, some of the best innovation we had seen from Nintendo in generations happened during the Switch era, because they focused on innovating not necessarily with the console itself, but with the games. The kind of advancements we've seen with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I want to see the Zelda team continue to evolve and innovate with their next Zelda game. I want to see the 3D Mario team do something even further beyond Mario Odyssey. I want to see what's next for Pikmin, for Xenoblade, for Kirby. A lot of different Nintendo IP saw their greatest successes on the Switch, and it's because they just focused on creating the best possible offering they could for that system without targeting some sort of weird specific gimmick, but just innovating with the game itself. So if Nintendo does just that, I think things are going to be totally okay. I think people are going to be happy with the Switch 2, even if the branding is basically just Switch with the 2. If the games look and run better, if they're doing new cool things, then isn't that a win for everyone? Isn't that where it really matters? The games themselves? I think so, but let me know what you think in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.